Hi everyone, good afternoon. This is Debrup Poddar here. I will be taking you through the first take of the Maharashtra MBA CET 2025 Day 2 Slot 1. So I happen to take this test myself, and we are hearing a lot of reports coming from our students who've also ended up taking this particular test. This is a special test because it grants admission to all the top MBA colleges across Maharashtra. The MH CET is special to IMS as well. We've had repeated amazing performances by our students year on year in this particular exam. Here I am going to be talking to you about the first take from this particular slot, which is from day 2 of the Maharashtra CET. All in all, I would say that there were no major surprises compared to even what we saw yesterday in day 1 in the structure of the paper. All in all, there were, as expected, 200 questions, 150 minutes, and the bifurcation of the questions in every section was also straightforward. There were 50 questions in QADI, 50 questions in VARC, 75 in logical reasoning, and 25 in abstract reasoning. So I would say all in all, there were no major surprises in terms of either the level of difficulty or the structure of the paper. Anyone who's joined in, who's tuned in, who's watching right now, I would encourage you all to share your experiences of taking the test, of the kind of questions that you dealt with, the kind of questions that you skipped, maybe some guesses here and there in a couple of questions. We'd love to know that in the chat. So I'm going to be walking you through in the next few minutes the breakdown of the different sections of the MHCET Day 2 Slot 1 paper. But let's start overall with the level of difficulty understanding. So as I said, the structure of the Day 2 paper was very similar to the first day. Section by section, there were no major surprises. 150 minutes, 200 questions with no negative marking. So you would have expected to mark as many questions as possible in the paper. There were no technical glitches experienced by myself or by any of our students who are reporting their experiences as they are coming out of the center. The experience was smooth for most, if not all, students, and there were no real reported cases yet of the exam starting late or something. The reported level of difficulty from this particular slot continues to stand as easy to moderate. The expectation was, as compared to yesterday's paper, that this would be consistent in terms of the level of difficulty of the paper. But if I were to really compare it with yesterday's paper, with day 1's overall 2 slots paper, then I would say that it was slightly easier compared to yesterday. That's just the overall experience that we are getting reported from the different students who have taken the test. So as I said, there are 4 areas in the paper: quantitative aptitude or QA, logical reasoning or LR, VARC, verbal ability and reading comprehension, and abstract reasoning. 50 questions in QA, 75 in LR, 50 in VARC, and 25 in AR. No major surprises in this particular structure of the paper. Let's start with each individual section and our remarks on the same as a part of the first take by IMS. Well, in the quantitative aptitude section, among the 50 questions, there were standard questions from different areas like arithmetic, numbers, probability, etc. I particularly experienced very few questions from the geometry bit of things, but I would say it was slightly heavy on arithmetic in general. A lot of questions around ratio proportion, around numbers, around maybe even profit loss. So these were the kind of questions that majorly constituted that section. In terms of the level of difficulty, the reported feedback that we are getting from the students is that of a moderate section. QA is never really completely sailed through the park. It's obviously something that needs a lot of fundamental analysis and understanding. And the reported feedback that we are getting from this particular section of day 2 slot 1 is that of a moderate level of difficulty. There were two DI sets right towards the end of this particular section. As all of you may know, you could toggle between the sections. So I happened to start with QA first, and I found the two DI sets of the QA section right at the end of that particular section. There were standard questions. One of them was around pie charts and percentages, and the other one was around a graphical representation in terms of line graph of combined with the concept of profit and loss. There were incomes and expenditures given year on year, and there were standard questions within that particular set. So those two DI sets, standard, nothing out of the ordinary. And overall, I would say that the level of difficulty was quite moderate. A standard spread of the quant questions as is expected. And if you would have done your fundamentals well, if you would have done your speed calculations, mental calculations, and all of that practice well, then this particular section shouldn't have caused a problem to you. Moving on to the logical reasoning section, there were 75 questions. Well, this was the section that I attempted third among my list of sections. But in the logical reasoning questions, I would say the overall level of difficulty was somewhere between easy to moderate. There were plenty of questions around basic puzzles, basic logics, family relations, family tree mapping and everything. There were around 5 caselets in this particular section. The caselets were also of easy to moderate difficulty in my opinion. Nothing majorly that much of a surprise. There was again, as was reported yesterday, there were no real cases of, no questions from the critical reasoning bit. There were no real questions around inference, assumption, reasoning, etc. So therefore, no critical reasoning, and a few math-based applications, mostly around probability, were a part of this particular section. Overall, the logical reasoning section was heavy with a lot of caselets right towards the end. Every caselet had around 3 to 4 questions each. And in my order of taking the questions, of attempting the questions, I quickly finished first the basic questions are in logical reasoning, which were around, let's say, family tree mapping or basic puzzles, and sequence of numbers and everything, odd one out. And those kind of questions I wrapped up first and then moved on to the caselets. All in all, the logical reasoning section did not pose that much of a challenge to our students as well, who are reporting that they experienced some of the questions from the caselets quite similar to the practice questions that they have already experienced from our ecosystem. Now we'll move on to the third section, which I attempted second in my order of attempting the different sections. That was VARC, verbal ability and reading comprehension. 50 questions in this particular section, all in all a level of difficulty of anywhere between easy to moderate. So yesterday what happened in VARC was that there were a lot of passages which were given in the particular section. Many passages and few number of questions for each passage, for each RC set. In my experience today, that wasn't the case. We had 12 RC questions split across around 4 RC sets. So very similar to the way that we are usually used to looking at a particular reading comprehension, reading them first and then looking at the questions and answering them. Compared to yesterday's slot paper, the RCs were not very lengthy. They were standard passages. All of them were mostly comprised of 2 paragraphs each and not very lengthy, not very difficult from a topic perspective also within those RC sets. So yeah, all in all, there were around 12 questions across these RC sets. The other questions of verbal ability were also standard. There were a lot of questions around grammar, around the correct usage of prepositions, around the correct usage of identifying whether there is an error in the statement or the statement is without any error. So those kind of questions, which are again standard in MHCET, were expected and were reported by the students. So yeah, the section was again a very standard verbal VARC kind of a set and section, and the level of difficulty was anywhere between easy to moderate. Nothing major of a surprise. If you've done your basic speed reading well, if you've done your basic grammar well, if you've done your basic verbal reasoning to a certain extent well, then I would say that this section shouldn't have posed any challenge in front of you. Coming on to the fourth section, which I also attempted in my order of attempting the sections right towards the end, which is the abstract reasoning section. Again, I would say that the abstract reasoning section was pretty standard. It had the standard questions of identifying patterns from different figures or filling out the missing piece of a particular puzzle. Very, very standard abstract reasoning questions. 25 questions in that particular section, and the level of difficulty reported by the students was also between easy to moderate. This comprises the entire paper of Maharashtra CET 2025, day 2, slot 1. We've discussed the breakdown of the 4 sections in detail, and all in all, the verdict that we would like to share at this point of time is that it was an easy to moderate level paper for all the 200 questions that came in. I personally attempted somewhere around 160 odd attempts, and I'm expecting, let's say, an accuracy anywhere between 75 to 80%. It's very difficult to, at this point of time, unless all the feedback has come in, unless all the slots have taken place, to comment on what is a good number of attempts, to comment on what is the expected percentiles with respect to that defined number of attempts. It's very difficult to comment on that, as was shared by my esteemed colleague Prasad sir yesterday as well, that historically when the paper has been easy to moderate, anywhere around the 130 plus range is a very good percentile, is a very good score that you can expect if you want to achieve 99 plus percentile. The difference as usual between a 99 percentile and let's say a 99.9 odd percentile is a difference of around 20 marks between the 99 percentile score and the 99.9 percentile score. Again, these are just trends, and they obviously are subject to change year on year. So at this point of time, commenting on the exact number of good attempts is difficult. However, it would have been expected from all the aspirants taking the test that since it did not carry negative marks, you would have been able to make some educated guesses, make some wild guesses also sometimes. It would have been prudent of you to not be stuck in a particular question. You have, mathematically you have 45 seconds per question to do. You may not be able to attempt all the questions, so let's say a minute or so on an average for every question. So a 150 attempt mark is a very good mark for you to strategically aim for, right? So for all of you who have taken the test today and yesterday so far, you can relax, you can wait for the results in a couple of weeks. There's nothing much more for you to do at this point of time. But for any one of you who's about to take the test in the coming slots, in the coming day tomorrow, it is expected that you go with a certain strategy, right? So certain pro tips or good practices from our side always include to never be stuck in a particular question, to always try to use the pen and paper as less as possible. Speaking of the pen and paper, yes, rough sheets were given. In fact, you could have asked for more than one rough sheet also if you requested. Maybe the policy in every center would have been different here and there, but you are allowed, it was written in the instructions before the paper, that you are allowed to you use a rough paper for all your rough working and your calculations. So nothing problematic in that area. Even if you're not used to solving a lot of questions mentally, it's fine. You can still have the access to the rough paper to solve your questions. But yeah, to save your time and to achieve that 45 second per question ideal mark, to do well in the CET, obviously more amount of mental calculations and speed reading is expected. I would say that since the slots so far have not revealed any major surprises, for anyone who's yet to take the test, you should also not expect any major surprises. That is our that is our guidance, that is our recommendation. Of course, we don't know what happens slot to slot. Historically, there have been known to be some differences between slots as well. But yeah, so far the trend suggests something of this sort, that no major surprises can be expected even within the particular section that you are attempting. Yeah, so this is the final verdict about day 2, slot 1 from our side. Overall level of difficulty was easy to moderate, and within easy to moderate also, I would say that today's paper in the morning was slightly easier as is reported by many of our students as compared to maybe the paper that happened yesterday. So that is the overall feedback. I would love for asking some questions from your side. There seems to be a pop-up over here, so I'll just erase that. Yes. Yeah, so I would love to see some of the questions and comments from your side. Firstly, if you can all mention, I can see the live chat over here. If you can, mention how many attempts that you've taken in this particular slot, then that would be great for me to also have a conversation with you. How did you find the paper? What was your level of difficulty that you experienced in this particular slot? And yeah, do share that. So I'll just walk through a couple of chat messages, and we can see around that. Okay, so there are some questions around cutoffs. There are some messages across the mix of the LRDI section as well. So I think you mean by LRDI the QADI as well as the LR section. So as I said, in the DI part, there were two reported data DI sets, one around pie charts and percentages, and the other around profit and loss combined with representation on a line graph. In the LR section, there were reported 5 caselets, and the 5 caselets were spread at the end of the paper. Somewhere around 20 questions is what was covered under those 5 caselets. So that's the breakdown of the structure of the LR caselets and the DI sets. Someone has asked about QA. So within the QA section specifically, yes, there were a lot of questions from arithmetic. There were a lot of questions specifically, let's say, on ratio proportion, on percentages, on little bit around profit loss. These type of questions were quite predominant. I remember one question around angle of elevation as well, where basic trigonometry would have to be used. Nothing majorly from a very geometry heavy perspective. So all in all, I would say a very even spread of math topics across the QA section. Some people are saying 2 to 3 questions were wrong. I wouldn't say questions were wrong. I felt in my experience of taking the test that there were some questions in which the answers were probably not accurate. Of course, I'm recollecting as I'm speaking, so maybe I could be mistaken. Maybe in my haste of taking a particular question, I may have felt that. But during the paper, I felt that, as you correctly pointed out in the chat, that maybe 2 to 3 questions, one in probably one section each, was probably incorrect in terms of the alternatives or the options that were given in front of that particular question. So we'll wait and watch if there are any issues that come across from, if we hear any more reports coming from our students, from any aspirant who's taken the test, we'll come to know more information about this. But yeah, in my experience, as I was taking the paper, yes, I did feel that there could be some questions which needed to be looked at later. I'm waiting for more messages and comments and questions from your side. So happy to take them up as we are discussing this. Someone has probably indicated towards the number of attempts as 165 to 170. I don't know if you're talking about number of attempts or the number of net correct questions. But yeah, as I said, my number of attempts were close to around 160 by the end of the paper. I did make a few educated guesses and some tukkas over and above that count. But yeah, in terms of genuine attempts, I would say I did somewhere around 160 attempts. Now accuracy becomes really critical, right? Because I mean, yeah, there is no negative marking, so it's not as critical as one would hope. But still, if you have a certain count of the number of attempts, you would want your accuracy level to be as high as possible, so that you clear those expected cutoff scores that have been historically prevalent. So yeah, a 160 attempt count is what I did. Many of the students are reporting somewhere in the upward ranges of 140, 150 number of attempts. And I think a 75 to 80% accuracy is also more than that, actually, is what a lot of students are also expecting after taking the test. Right. So we've discussed about the sectional breakdown. Okay, someone has said, I came across few questions wherein the answers were mentioned in 2 options out of 5 simultaneously. Not to the best of my recollection. Whoever's asked this question, not able to make out the name, but not to the best of my recollection. But maybe as we will review the paper later on, from more and more reports that come in from the students, we'll get a better understanding of the same. 2 options out of 5 were reportedly same in those questions. That's what the claim is. We'll come to know more from such reports coming from more and more students and aspirants who have taken the test. So yeah, I mean, someone has asked about the views on slot one, day one and day two. So as I said, I'll reiterate that day two seems to be slightly on the easier side of things as compared to day one. Slightly, if there's not a major difference. Both the papers, both the slots, both the days can be rated as easy to moderate in our best judgment so far, as per the reports that have come from different students and aspirants who've taken the test. Not major differences. I think the number of attempts, the number of expected cutoff scores and everything would more or less be the same if the level of difficulty for both the days are expected to be between easy to moderate. Did any one of you, if any of you can, mention in the chat, if any of you felt that the level of difficulty is not matching with what has been written on the screen? Did you feel that the level of difficulty was, let's say, much easier or much more as compared to what we have claimed over here? Do share your experiences. Akash Dakua has shared that he attempted 57 genuine attempts. Congratulations, Akash. And I also did somewhere around that same mark. So very many congratulations to you for that. And I hope that you get a high score with a great accuracy rate. So yeah, if any of you can mention if any of you disagree or have different views on this level of difficulty, did you find the paper as easy or as difficult as what we are claiming it to be? Do share that in the comment in the comments as well, and we'd be happy to discuss that. Let's see if there are any more questions that are coming up. Difficult to comment on the cutoff again, Akash. It's very difficult to say at this point of time, like we have discussed. Let's hope for the best. Let's keep in mind. Let's be cognizant of the past numbers, the past historical trend of the cutoff scores, and that should serve as a good guidance for us to take it forward from there. But at this point of time, quite difficult to comment exact cutoff score and as per the percentile. So Darshana has said 198 questions. Wow, if you've attempted 198 questions, Darshana, that's fantastic. 198 out of 200. I really hope you have a fantastic accuracy, and all of them have been genuine attempts and not some included with tukka. But yeah, very good to see that you've such a fabulous count of attempts in this particular slot. So congratulations to you on that, and hoping for your good accuracy to keep up your score as high as possible. Any other comments and feedback that you'd like to share with us in the comments, please do mention that. I'm happy to take that up and discuss with the larger crowd. I see no further questions. So yeah, maybe I'll wrap it up in this particular discussion. The core things, the key takeaways that we have discussed are that the level of difficulty was easy to moderate in this particular slot, maybe slightly easier as compared to the yesterday's paper. The structure of the paper remained the same. There were no major surprises in the overall structure of the paper. Within each section, the QA section was reported to be having a moderate level of difficulty, while the other three sections had easy to moderate level of difficulty. The key takeaways again would include that there were 2 DI sets, both relatively easy in my opinion, and around 5 LR caselets. All of them could be managed. There was no critical reasoning again, as was the case yesterday in this particular section of logical reasoning. The key difference from yesterday was that the RC sets were less in number, the passages were shorter, and the number of questions were around 10 to 12 questions across these RC sets. Everything remains standard in the abstract reasoning section, so no major surprises or challenges or difficulties there as well. So all in all, this is the verdict of MBACET CET 2025 Day 2 Slot 1. Stay tuned in to the IMS YouTube channel to keep getting more and more updates about MBACET CET, about CAT 2025. If any aspirants of CAT 2025 are also there in the audience now, or if any of you watch this later, we'd be happy to guide you with our expert mentors, one-on-one guidance, and state-of-the-art product offering for all of your enhanced test prep and admission prep experience. So this is Debrup Poddar signing off. Thank you for all your questions and comments in the chat as well. I was happy to see and answer a couple of them. And we'll take it up from here next time around. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Take care.